One day, he was standing in the market, filthy and shouting at the sky, and the next, he was walking around like a normal man, like the madness was never there. But what struck me wasn't the miracle of his recovery, it was her. It was Ada. It started months ago. The madman, who everyone called Jaja, had been in our village as long as I could remember. He wasn't violent, but people avoided him. He talked to himself, wore rags, and sometimes ate food from the ground. Nobody cared where he slept, or even he was alive most days. He was just there like the trees or the dust. Then Ada began visiting him. Ada wasn't like us. She was quiet, kept to herself pretty, but in the strange, serious way that made you think she was always listening to something you couldn't hear. She was lived with her auntie, who sold fish at the market. I don't think Ada ever had many friends, so people didn't notice at first when she started sitting near Jaja. At first, she would just watch him from a distance. He would be pacing around, shouting nonsense, and she'd sit on a broken wall nearby, staring. I thought it was curiosity, maybe pity. But then she started bringing him food. She would wrap it a banana leaf and leave it near him. He would grab it without even looking at her, mutter something and walk away. After a while, she didn't just leave the food. She would sit and eat. Sometimes she would talk to him, not loudly, just soft, low words, and I couldn't hear even if I tried to eavesdrop. And Jaja, for some reason, would sit quietly and listen. Her auntie tried to stop her, of course. One time, she dragged Ada home by her wrist, yelling about how she was disgracing their family. But the next day, Ada was back. One afternoon, I decided to ask her about it. I was sitting by the well when she walked past, carrying a small bundle of food. Ada, I called. Why do you go to him? She looked at me like she would be expecting the question. Her eyes were calm, serious. He's not just a madman, she said. I didn't understand what she meant, and she didn't explain. Weeks turned into months, and she kept going to him. She would sit him for hours, even when he started rambling or laughing to him. Sometimes she would sing, and sometimes they would just sit in silence. Jaja still looked the same, wild hair, torn clothes, but something about him seemed different. He didn't shout at people as much, and he started walking with a steady fast. Then, one morning, everything changed. It was market day, and the whole village was bustling. I was helping my mother sell yam when someone screamed. Everybody turned to see Jaja walking through the crowd, but he didn't look like Jaja. His hair was cut, his clothes were clean. He stood tall, his eyes clear and sharp. He wasn't muttering or shouting, he was smiling. People whispered and backed away as he passed. It was like seeing a ghost. He stopped at Ada's stall, where she was selling groundnuts for her aunt. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Thank you." She didn't say anything, just smiled back at him. The village was never the same after that. People said all kinds of things. Some believed Ada had prayed for him, that her kindness had healed him. Others thought it was witchcraft, Her auntie swore Ada must have made a deal with some spirit, but Ada didn't care. She and Jaja started spending more time together. They would walk through the village, sit under the big bamboo tree, talking and laughing like they know each other forever. Still, they were whisper. Some people couldn't let go of the idea and something unnatural had happened. One night, I overheard my mother talking to a neighbor. What if the madness come back? The neighbor asked. It won't, my mother said. Not with her there. Whatever it was, she chased it away. To this day, I don't know if that's true, but I do know this. Ada saw something in Jaja and the rest of us didn't. Something worth saving. Ada somehow that was enough to bring him back. Life in the village moved on, as it always does, but the story of Ada and Jaja lingered like a shadow. People watched them, curious but wary. It wasn't every day you saw a madman become a normal man, and not just normal. Jaja, it turned out, was clever. He started helping people fix their roofs, sharpen their tools, and even repair the old grinding mill. What was he before? People whispered. Who was he before he lost his mind? Nobody had answers. Not even Jaja himself. He said he remembered bits and pieces, his name, and he came from a faraway village, but the rest was like smoke. Maybe it's better that way, he would say with a strong. As for Ada, she stayed by his side. If the villagers thought she was trained before, now they were convinced of it. Some said she had trapped him with juju. Others believed she had been sent by the gods to test him and the rest of us. One day a strange thing happened. A man from another village came through the market. He was tall, with a scar across the face, and he stopped in front of Jaja, staring at him like he was seeing a ghost. Is it you? The man asked. Nnamdi. Jaja froze for a long moment. He just looked at the man, his face blank. Then he said slowly, like he was testing the word, Nnamdi. The man nodded, tears in his eyes. We thought you were dead, he said. We looked for you for years. The villagers crowded around as the man told his story. Jaja, no, Nnamdi, had been a farmer in a village 2 days' walk from us. One day, raiders came. They burned his farm, killed his family, and left him for dead. When the villagers found him, he was alive, but his mind was gone. He wandered off one night and was never seen again until now. The man begged Jaja to come home with him. Your people will rejoice to see you, he said. They have been mourning you all these years. Jaja looked at Ada. She didn't say anything, just to watch him with those steady eyes of hers. I can't go back, Jaja said finally. The life is gone. I'm someone else now. The man didn't argue. He just nodded, clapped Jaja on the shoulder, and left. But after that, things felt different. Jaja started spending more time alone, walking in the field, staring at the horizon. Ada stayed close, but even she seemed quieter, like she was waiting for something. Then one night, the whole village was woken by the sound of screaming. I ran out and saw a crowd near the bamboo tree. Jaja was there, thrashing on the ground, his hands clawing at his face. Ada was kneeling beside him, holding his head in her lap, whispering something I couldn't hear. He's gone mad again, someone muttered. But I didn't think it was madness. Jaja wasn't shouting nonsense, he was crying. Deep gutturing sobs that made my chest hot just listening to them. The next morning, he was gone. Nobody knew where he went, not even Ada. She didn't cry or ask for help finding him. She just went back to her life, selling groundnuts and sitting under the bamboo tree. Week passes, then months. Jaja became another story, like a dream we all shared but couldn't quite remember. People stopped talking about him, and that quiet presence became part of the background again. Then one evening, just as the sun was setting, he came back. He looked different, taller, stronger, with a calmness that made you want to sit and listen. He walked straight to Ada's stall and knelt in front of her. I had to leave, he said, to find myself again, to remember who I was and decide who I want to be. And I want to be here with you. And I didn't say anything for a long time. Then she smiled and held out her hand. From that day on, they were inseparable. The villagers, of course, found new things to whisper about: how Ada had brought him back twice, how their love was cursed or blessed, depending on who you ask. But Ada and Jaja didn't care. They built a small house on the edge of the village, near the river, and planted a garden. People still avoided them out of fear or respect, but sometimes, if you walk past their house at dusk, you will hear them laughing. Ada may be that's real miracle. Not that Ada saved Jaja or that Jaja found his way back to himself, but that in a world that had given them every reason to break, they choose to stay whole together.